And so what I've done is proved that in a month, you can basically build the skill set from zero in order to bring a product into the world and, get your first 10 users, start to get feedback on it, and evaluate product market fit from there. Hey, I built a web application with no prior code experience in 30 days, and in this video I'm going to tell you how I did that and the thought process behind it. And the overarching message of this video is that you too are 30 days away from having a product of your own. You see, I've been very interested in the transition from a designer into a builder. This is where a designer would learn skills like front-end and full-stack development to give them the power to bring a product into the world without needing to consult a developer team. I think this solves a lot of the common problems that product designers come to me with. They say that they're not well integrated enough into the developer team, that design doesn't have a seat at the table in their organization, that the client is just throwing them requirements and isn't thoughtful about the product that they're trying to build. But with builder skills, developers would have the agency to bring a rough draft or a prototype of a product into the world. And I actually think this shifts the power to the designer, because with AI copilots, code is going to become easier and easier. We just type with natural language and an AI is going to output the code for us. So that becomes easier, and the really hard skill, the most valuable thing, is an empathy for human beings and trying to dig deep and understand human problems in order to solve them with a product. My relationship with code was probably similar to many other people's. It was start and stop. I tried some Hello World examples. Many people were telling me that I should learn these things, but I didn't ever fully solidify my knowledge of code with a real project. And this was because I never knew what I was trying to build. And one of the best pieces of advice I had heard on how to learn how to code is that you need to figure out what you want to build first, and then start to learn code as you go along. And you will derive motivation from seeing this product iteratively come into the world in order to get through the rigor and monotony of learning code. How does one change the world for the better? I think a lot of people think about this. They want their careers to align with it. They spend approximately 80,000 hours at their job. And so how can those best be spent to have the greatest impact on the world? We all want to do good in the world. How can we get involved in this trend? And based on my research, and this is a personal question, but it's about developing emerging technologies and about bringing them into the world, because this improves the human condition most. If we look at just in the past 200 years since the Industrial Revolution, we see that the human condition has improved so much. The average life expectancy is 2 times what it was. The majority of the world is educated and has been lifted out of extreme poverty, and the world population is much larger than it was 200 years ago. So I believe that technology is a positive force for the world, and that building at the edge of technology is one of the best ways to bring these human condition improvements into the world. And now the question becomes, how does one get involved in these emerging technology fields? What are these emerging technology fields? And we might take our cue from Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley has been the best place to do this over the past several decades. They ushered in the PC revolution in the 80s, the internet revolution in the 90s, social media in the 2000s, and cloud computing in the 2010s. And now in Silicon Valley, there's a new wave of startups that is building the next wave of technology. Things like artificial intelligence, Web3, biotechnology and healthcare, and many others, renewables, space, robotics. We could go on, but these exist and are being funded by Silicon Valley venture capital firms. And so if we want to figure out what are the fields that we should get involved in that are the emerging technology of today, we might want to look at these Silicon Valley startups. So I started looking into these Silicon Valley venture capital firm websites and saw that they would publish perspectives on where they thought the next wave of technology would be going. Very interesting articles, but one thing was fascinating. They posted the jobs of all of the startups that they invested in. They have a job board for those startups. And this was such an interesting list for me because I felt that this is the list that somebody would want if they wanted to get involved in emerging technology. It all started with a prompt. I literally asked ChatGPT, how can I scrape jobs off of this Silicon Valley venture capital website? And it gave me Python code in order to do so. And I didn't even know that I needed Python. It just gave this to me and I started scraping it immediately. And before I knew it, I had the jobs from one Silicon Valley venture capital firm, and there were 15 other websites that I had identified. And so the idea for the application was to aggregate all of these jobs into one place because I didn't find these startup jobs on other job boards. That was very interesting to me. These are some of the most profound, high-tech, top-tier startups jobs in the world, yet I didn't find all of the jobs in another job board. So first I had one website's worth of jobs, and then I had 17 and roughly 3,500 jobs in total. I'm focused on product design, product management, marketing, and front-end developer jobs. Not that I have anything against back-end developers at all or other engineers, but I'm very interested in helping creatives, non-technical backgrounds get involved in these tech startups because I believe that the more creatives are involved in bringing into the world these next-gen technologies, the better the world will be because creatives amplify humanity, and that's what I think we need most in this next-gen tech. So I had this list, and this list was perfect for me. And I think that's a green flag when you know that you've built a product for yourself and you're happy with it. And I pasted it into a Google spreadsheet and posted it on Twitter and got some good initial feedback. Some people were visiting it and applying to jobs through it. However, what I learned was that there was a fast churn rate in the jobs. I had roughly 3,500 total jobs, and every single week, around 300 jobs got removed or became inactive because those positions had been filled, presumably. So the links were inactive, and what it means is that the list that I posted quickly went out of date. And so I quickly realized that I needed to build a web application to serve these jobs in real time, and that this was the full fruition of my product, was a web application. I really didn't know the first place to start when it came to full stack development. So I asked ChatGPT, what is the most popular tech stack? And it gave me MERN, Mongo for the database, Express and Node for the back end, and React for the front end. And I knew I was interested in this this full stack framework because it included React. And as a product designer, all of the previous developers I had worked with used React. So I knew that even if this project was a huge failure for me, if I just learned a little bit of React, it would help me speak the language in the future to the developers that I work with, and that this was a beneficial skill set no matter what happened. And I'll be completely honest, it was very difficult in the beginning to learn this stack. I had to move away from thinking about my web application and just learn the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Mostly JavaScript and React. I spent about a week learning the fundamentals of this, and I found a really good beginner tutorial for React. It was implementing a to-do list using React, published by Mozilla, and I did this tutorial 5 times. The first time I didn't know anything, and I was just copying and pasting code, but I slowly started to understand how React worked under the hood, that there are these fundamental units called components, and that you kind of stack these components together like Legos, and that it renders your full user interface. And then by the 5th time that I did it, I was doing it fully by memory, and I had a good enough grasp at that point to move back to my web application development. So I told you about these things called components. So in Figma, I knew kind of what my user interface would look like, and I broke that down into the components that I needed. And the fundamental component for a job board serving real-time jobs was a card that shows the job details, things like company name, role name, and then the link to apply to the job. So this was the first component I started with. I called it job item, and then from there you kind of just build the components up until you have your full stack application. This took me about 2 weeks and was quite a fun time actually, because I knew the basics from that first week of fundamentals training, and then I could just ask ChatGPT to generate the code rapidly, and I rapidly produced this user interface. So once I had built my web application, I deployed it to the web. I had bought some domain names for it, UX Startup Jobs and the 3 others. What I had done was I divided my overall product, which had 3,500 startup jobs, and I broke it down into those 4 categories that I told you about before: product design, product management, product marketing, and front-end development. And I did this because I saw a Twitter post that talked about building product around Google search terms. So I found that the most popular Google search terms were in specific niche categories like product design or UX design jobs. So if I built a product specifically for that, I could load the landing page with those keywords and get that internet traffic eventually to come into my website, because I was serving exactly what they were searching for. So this kind of brings in the business element of things, and how are you going to get web traffic, and then how are you going to monetize? For monetization, I can't tell you exactly what I'm going to do in the future. I don't know. What I've started doing though is I added a feature called Set Alerts. And what this does is it captures email for people, and I'm going to email people, instead of them having to go to the website, just email them the new jobs for the week. And with this email capture, I get to start to build a list of people that I could eventually market and sell products to in the future. So the last thing that I did was install Google Analytics on each one of the HTML pages for these websites, so I could start to track the traffic coming to each one of these. And I will be sure to update this channel with at 1 month, at 3 months, and at 6 months, the traffic and how it evolves over time. Anyways, I hope this overall tutorial or video was helpful for you guys, and that you derive motivation from it and realize that there's nothing special about what I did. I have a UX research background, but I always had this sense of lacking, that I couldn't bring a product into the world, and that it never really felt like I was taking shots on goal. I am interested in startups. I am interested in entrepreneurship. I love design. I love creativity, and I love technology. And the one thing that was missing for me though was having the agency to actually build products on my own. If you have an idea, you don't want to go to a developer agency and spend thousands of dollars just to get the first prototype of that idea. And so what I've done is proved that in a month, you can basically build the skill set from zero in order to bring a product into the world and, get your first 10 users, start to get feedback on it, and evaluate product market fit from there. Thank you all for watching.